the massive base. Its acres are for their use alone, as if they are the only spirits on earth. A school bus will arrive to ferry them the few miles to the Waterside Theater at the Fort Riley National Historic Site, but that won't happen for hours. The guitar player transitions to a tune by Huddie Ledbetter, otherwise known as Leadbelly, whose folk blues record they'd been listening to late into the night at the base canteen. The young man is Andy Griffith. He sings House of the Rising Sun in a full-throated baritone, rather than imitate Leadbelly's famous tenor. Turning from the volleyball game, Andy's good friend Bob, an Alabama native with gleaming dark eyes, who'd escaped Birmingham's steel mills to study the dramatic arts as a Carolina playmaker, cups thick hands over his mouth and shouts, "I love it. Sing louder, Andy." Andy flashes a huge smile, glad he sacrificed summer wages to be there, rather than work on the factory floor at the furniture plant with his father, as he did in previous years. He's a player in the cast of The Lost Colony. The job pays half as much as he'd have earned if he'd stayed home, but there are obvious perks, including room and board, and the beer at the canteen is kept ice cold. The costumes are stifling, the physicality exhausting, but each day is invigorating. There's pure joy in the making. And with everyone living, working, and playing together all day, all summer, life, work, and fun blended as one, it's the best thing Andy's experienced. Choosing to take a cut in pay is the most profound and practical decision of his life. Interior, Alvin Theater, New York City, night. The performance that night was off, Andy thought. Why couldn't they have come on a better night? It was a Wednesday, and the theater wasn't entirely full. There were a few biggish laughs and applause at the end, but the laughs weren't everywhere they were supposed to be, and there was no standing ovation. Andy thought of how a few years back he stood over that skinny kid in the office above the music store in Greensboro with his sound equipment, twisting the knobs, cutting tape, and tweaking the laughter, splicing it until it was everywhere it was needed. The laughs for the Romeo and Juliet monologue were spliced at the end of the football bit. The show was off, Dick. You hit all the marks, all your lines. The show was perfect, Andy's manager said. It was off. Andy shook his head and grabbed the back of his neck, as if he was testing to see if he could wrench his head off. Why on a Wednesday? This is the third damn time they watched me perform. Let's get over there, Dick said. They're already at the table. We'll slide out the front to save steps. As Dick and Andy walked the dozen or so paces east, past the brick and stone facade of the Alvin Theater on 52nd Street, in the bright night of Manhattan's theater district, Dick said to Andy, Bud thinks you might be too nice to play it. Don't be too nice. Not a problem at all, Andy said. This meeting was their last shot. Ida Kazan had been circling Andy for weeks. They'd seen him on stage. They'd met in Schubert Alley. The role was the lead in the great director's follow-up to On the Waterfront, which came out the year before, 1954. This new film was based on Bud Schulberg's short story, Your Arkansas Traveler. The hesitancy wasn't so much that Andy didn't have enough charisma, star power. He did. He lit up a room. He had energy about him. The concern was that maybe Andy couldn't play dark enough, couldn't be vicious, cynical, and devilish. Andy knew this was their fear, so he'd show them charisma, and he'd give them the devil. Andy's hands were not the hands of a typical actor. They were not soft or weak. He could break your hand when he shook it, if he wanted. Andy's hands were chafed